All right, this is Doug Bennett from DyeStat.com. Super excited to be joined tonight by Dathan Ritzenhein and his daughter Addison, who just won the Nike Cross Nationals individual girls title 3 days ago over at Glendoveer Golf Course. I can tell you both that it has not stopped raining since that meet ended, and that lake is probably bigger now than it was even then. So thank you both for joining me. What's it been like the last few days, sort of like processing what you went through on Saturday?
I mean, not much has changed. I feel like we just kind of celebrated. I'm on my break now for running. Just getting back into school and like sharing the moment with my family and my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's been spending a lot of time doing homework.
Okay, catching up. Finals probably coming and things like that, right? Dathan, after the race, I actually had a chance to talk with Addison up in the clubhouse and all that. But boy, in the afternoon, I was just thinking, boy, I wonder what Dathan thought about all that. Like, what was going through your mind watching her, win a national championship, something that you did twice back in 1999 and 2000.
Yeah, it's wild. It was one of those. It was kind of surreal to watch it happen because it was quite dramatic. I think for us as her parents too, because the way the race played out. She's always a really savvy racer, and we don't really get involved too much. So we kind of leave that all up to Coach Kelly. He's the man, the mastermind, and so we go to these things and we have no idea what the race plan is or anything, and so but I'm maybe the psycho dad that runs around out there and gets to all the I can still move pretty fast, so I got to the most remote parts of the course. But as I was watching, she looked like in a good smart position, and kind of saw her, I think, at halfway, starting to bridge the gap with Bethany. They started to kind of move up to the two girls that were out front, and I think I tried to sprint really fast from that backside of the course, and when they make the pass through the start line again, I covered that ground the same pace they did, pretty much all the way to the far side, and then I think I hurt my hamstring to get there because they were flying and they were moving up fast, and I didn't see my son Jude was running around with me, but he didn't go to the backside of the course. He waited, and so then I saw him again there, and I was like, "Holy crap! I think she's gonna catch her. I think. I mean, the momentum looked good, and so we saw her those few times before the puddle, and then we were right there where they jumped out at 4K, and yeah, she looked focused and strong, and it was pretty cool. Yeah. Came up to the top of the hill, and I had to pull up my phone because I wanted to be at the bottom of the hill, and it looked like she had it, but you never know with those hills. So get to the top, and it was really, really awesome. My wife was up there, and Jude, and it was really cool.
So I rewatched it here this afternoon just to write down a few notes. You led the last 3 minutes and 20 seconds of that race. But when there was, Addison, when there was moments earlier where you were at 2K, you were 17 and a half seconds behind, and at 3K, you were still 14 seconds behind. Like when you see, and I'm sure that you and Bethany are kind of like racing for the 1 point, even perhaps even more than the win maybe early in the race. But when did you begin to realize that you were slowly beginning to reel in Elizabeth Leachman?
I would say around 3K, I noticed like the gap was like getting smaller, but I was really focused on my footing, so I didn't really notice it until like I looked up at 3K and I was like, wow, me and Bethany can really like work to get up there. And I think we like were really focusing on trying to get that like 1 point for the team and doing whatever it takes to get that for the team. And yeah, it all just went very well, I guess.
Yeah. There was that second time through the big pond where Leachman goes in first, and there's a few seconds, and it seemed like almost by the time you guys came out of the pond, you were almost just like right on top of her, and then again, you go through the last K timing mats, and boom, it was just like, then you just took off, and, Bethany was not that far behind, but the last 3 minutes of that race where you were kind of like out there pulling into the lead and extending the lead, I mean, you looked like it was just effortless. It looked so good. Like, what were you feeling those last 3 minutes of that race as you now are kind of like the focus of everyone's attention?
Yeah, I couldn't really believe it in the moment. I was trying not to like look behind my shoulder and just like kind of stay like where I was like in the moment. But it was like it was surreal. I didn't want to get ahead of myself though before the hills, and I would say like that really played into like my hands.
Yeah. Um, so after the finish line, I think some people even made the comparison. Dathan in 2012 after that 10K at Hayward Field, on his knees in the rain, like super happy, and then there you are, sort of like on your knees in the mud, like, what did I just do? Uh, the echoes of like one generation to the next, Dathan, like, what do you see in Addy's running that either reminds you of yourself or reminds you of your wife, Kaylin?
It's been a rapid change for sure. Um, I guess over the last couple years, we moved here to Niwot in 2020, and Addy didn't really run before that. I mean, she did 10 years of gymnastics, in the at rec level, and then she did swimming for like 2 or 3 years maybe, and neither of those things we know anything about, and so but when we moved and to Niwot here, we kind of said, it's super expensive during this COVID thing to do the pool, do swimming. So maybe you should try, try running. And Coach Tim was doing a real training club here in town, and so we thought it'd be easy. And she did it for a year or two and got to know some of the girls. But went did volleyball for a year then and didn't run. And so then when she started back again as a freshman, it was it was I had no idea what she was gonna do, and I said so I think I think what we were doing is we were going to Commonwealth games to watch Ollie and Jordy, and I was taking her and Jude, and I went to Coach Kelly and I said, all right, how's she doing this summer, like, because I knew I'd have to run with her, and he's like, oh, she's doing good, she'll be contending for varsity, he said. And I was like, oh, wow, really? Because they won, the running lane meet last year. So
Yeah.
I thought that's a surprise, And, me and Jude were running there with her on the canals in Birmingham. And we were like, holy cow, like, she's pretty fit, and then as the year went on, I think she started as their fifth runner. And by the end, she was 18th, 17th, 18th at NXN. And so, like, and then, just 1 year of just training with the team and with Kelly is such a great coach that, he's just really, developed her as a really good athlete. And, she listens to everything he says. And so we don't really know a whole lot. And then, as this season started again, she was already running faster than she was last year by a lot. And so it was just, we didn't really know, like what to think. But then when you watch her race, she's much more composed, maybe like the race that she did this weekend. She just, yeah, she stuck to the game plan. And when the moments happened, so that she knew when to go for it. And she's very comfortable in cross country and knows her effort really good. And she always has a great kick, a lot better than mine. She can close well. She can push hard at the end. But she trains a lot smarter than I did as an athlete. So she's already, she's already doing this. And so I think, that part, I guess, is like the savvy part is there. And, but the thing that I like is we had a really good team, fun team, was really close. I mean, obviously, I married her mom, and we were high school teammates, and so I see that the fun that they have and the closeness with their girls team is so tight knit, and that's something that I love to watch and see. And but like from a running standpoint, she's just calm and composed, and like doesn't overthink things too much. Like she has fun. I think I heard one of her interviews afterwards. She didn't think about the race until the morning of, which is good. Like and just let it happen, let it have fun, and the process is really good. I probably was a little bit more like I was just crazier, like in some of those ways, and but she's got a good head on her shoulders.
Yeah, yeah. For those maybe even younger people who might watch this video, don't know exactly who Dathan Ritzenhein is as the runner. I mean, one of the all-time greats, and someone who, along with Ryan Hall and Alan Webb, gets a lot of credit for sort of like shaking things up again after a very sort of um, like not so great 90s period of high school running, like really burst the doors open, and a lot of what we've seen, I think, spilled out of that excitement that you and Alan and others, I rewatched your 1999 video. Ian Dobson led a lot of that race, and then you went past him and won your first Foot Locker title. um how how different does it feel being around the scene of like these national events now compared to what you experienced then?
It's definitely there's a lot of difference in that. I think kids know a lot more about each other in the world that we live in now, and so we didn't know a whole lot about the other athletes other than back in when I was in high school. There was something called the Harrier magazine or Harrier newsletter. I'm not sure what it was, but Mark Bloom produced that. I don't remember how often it would come out. Maybe you remember, but I would get them in paper form, and that was how you knew what was going on. And a lot of these kids know each other, and it's cool to see because like they get a connection if they go to NXN. They meet the other teams, the other athletes, and I think it's closer in that way. It's more communal, and so sometimes they know what they're doing, but also like Niwot, like they've created their track team and their cross country team is such a well organized, good coaches that have created a really good culture of that. I think they're kind of I think it's I'm biased, but I think it's the best program. Like when you look at the women, the men, they win individual title. Like they've created, Coach Kelly, Coach Mo, Coach Tim, that staff. They've done so good that I think that is different from what we used to do. There was less knowledge, so it was maybe quite reckless. Like Addy, I think trains super super smart, and I don't really know what she does until after she does it, but then I think, wow, it's really smart, whereas we were just like, I think we just hammered away, and
Hammered away big time, like,
yeah, and
you were the guy out there doing 90-95 in the summer, getting ready for your senior year and all that. And
yeah,
everyone was so impressed with just like the force of your will, because you weren't like, you were a little bit of a smaller kid, like just seemed like it just run forever. Addy, I'm curious to ask you, like, how do the other kids on your team regard your dad, or just, what's it like to be a Ritzenhein in this amazing running program when you've got a bit of a, there's some legacy there that even if kids don't understand it, certainly your coaches do.
Yeah, I feel like my team really appreciates like um just like the whole aspect of it, and it's like they really look up to my dad, and so do the coaches. They'll go to him for advice, and they'll ask me like, "Oh, did your dad say anything?" Or like they get they get to see like a new world of like professional runners too, and it can like help them see what they want to do later in life also. And I think it's like a really good thing.
yeah,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
I would say their program there, it's a special place. I mean, I really think it is. They have great training grounds there, but like my athletes that I coach now, some of the best runners in the world train there. The Bossard, Emma Coburn's group trains there. The Tin Man guys, like there's a lot of people that they are there, and it's part of the community, and it's I think it their team is I think it's one of the best in the
Yeah.
country for a reason, and like a lot of that comes from like the community has really embraced it, and but yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you're seeing all those great athletes. I was curious, Addison, like how much interaction do you have with, the Yards and Alicia and Helen O'Beary? Like, do you get to spend any time with them and like, just I don't know, get some rub off of them a little bit?
Yeah, I would say I see them quite often. Especially at the OAC gym, if I'm like doing a treadmill workout, I'll see them. They'll like wish me good luck. They're very supportive and they give a lot of good advice also. And I feel like it's really cool to like experience that with them. Like we can go to their races and like see them succeed. And yeah.
Yeah, like she'll go. We're gonna go this weekend. We're on vacation mode. A couple of them are running in Hawaii, and so we'll go. She gets to have
Oh,
her 2 week
nice.
break. She gets to have her 2 week break and go. Drink. I don't know, pina colada. Type drinks and watch the miles. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can remember, Dathan, going out to the Ronaldo field, probably to write a newspaper story about you, and I can picture your wife with a stroller, and it had to have been Addy, but um, how much when she was a baby, let's say, like, were there any signs along the way that it's like, well, she's definitely athletic. We can see that, and maybe that's going to turn into something. Clearly, I mean, the two of you were incredible athletes yourselves, and I don't know how far back that goes. Like, do you, Addie, were your grandparents awesome runners? Like, how much does this genetic DNA like evident, like that you can just see it go through the whole family tree?
Um, I mean, I'd say my grandpa was pretty fit. Um, I, he, I know he got my dad into running, and he would do, I believe, triathlons. Um,
Recreationally though, like we didn't have any good athletes, like high caliber athletes. My grandpa was a really good young boxer in the military, maybe, and he went on like he started running seriously when he was like 70 and ran like 25 minutes for 5K at 70 after not really being a runner. So I'm sure it was in there,
Yeah,
but the mentality is there. She's very driven by, like a lot of things like school, like she's very detail oriented. She does all the little things and you can see it. And I think she's quite competitive, like, and maybe it didn't show so much. Like Jude, my son, is like outright competitive. Like me and him will get into, like crying matches when we lose the board games, like too competitive, where Addy maybe shows it on simmer a little bit more, but she doesn't like to lose very much either. So,
yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah. How old is your son? How soon till we see him?
uh,
Racing in some of these meets.
he's in seventh grade. He's 13, and yeah, he runs with a group, Melody Fairchild, actually, who is also a Foot Locker national, probably one of the best female high school runners ever. She coaches a group that he runs with, Boulder Mountain Warriors, and so he does that as a club sport. And then yeah, he's he runs a bit, like 2 days a week and maybe three if there was a race on the weekend. But yeah, it's holding him back. Is always important. Like Addy, I
Yeah,
think obviously has a lot of talent and potential, and I mean probably more than her mom and I. Like, but we try not to. We just enjoy it, the process, and have fun, and let her come to it. And that was Coach Kelly when we were looking for have her go to school, and they had the open house, and he's like, oh, we'll just she'll just start running with the team, and she knows some of the girls, and they'll get close, and we'll just see what happens. And sure enough, the competitive fire comes out. And so yeah, whereas Jude's more obvious right away, like but Eddie's got a really good competitive fire and a lot of talent and really hardworking, dedicated, and so you got to have all the tools. It's not, you
yeah.
can't just have one.
I think we see, that especially in the elite high school running, that there's always a little bit of a push and pull between how ambitious should a kid be versus we got to hold them back because we want them to be good in college and not be burnt out. Like, and I'm sure that you've had decades to sort of think about that and evaluate how that works with different runners that maybe 12th grade is the best they ever run, and then you never just really hear about them again, or others that are held back a little bit and they become Alicia Monson or something like that.
Yeah,
How do you see that push and pull?
it's hard as a parent, like because you want to just. I think the best tactic that we're very lucky to be in this community that has a really good coaching staff and really knowledgeable, and we just let them do it. Like we get to go to the races and be parents and cheer. You know, I occasionally might yell or something, and occasionally I might have to pull like a dad move where we have like a nice it's like for example, she was supposed to run Arcadia last year and she ran into a pole, like on the shakeout the morning of and had to get 27 stitches in her head, like and didn't race. And so, I had to pull the dad move and be like, all right, I'm get a hold of Steve Dolan at Penn Relays and see if get her in the 3K last minute, and we could go do that fun trip. But other than that, I don't get involved. I don't do nothing. I just, let Kelly do it. And my wife, like the biggest thing is maybe we shovel the track and, and we do that parent thing, but other than that, we let them take care of it. And it's easy to be able to do if you trust a lot the coaches, and she's a very coachable person. I think she trusts him, and she wants to do more. Like he says, like he wants her to take a month off, now no running, and she definitely wants to run. Usually she takes 2 weeks off, and he's like, we can negotiate, and so she, like she wants to run, sooner. But we let him do it and let her, like we trust him, and so we're fortunate in that way though, and so I think it's different for every kid probably, because if you're a high schooler and your odds, like for example, when we were in high school in the late 90s, we graduated in 2001, we had a lot of athletes that went to college on scholarships, that maybe didn't, they maximized themselves in high school, but they got themselves to a level which, yeah, they weren't going to be professional athletes maybe, so they went more extreme. Whereas if you have a really talented athlete and you want them to really enjoy the process and develop, it's hard. I think a lot of coaches, it might be hard to not push them, let them, but you kind of got to hold them back and just look at the long term and say, hey, let's just continue to develop. And so I've been very happy, and my wife very happy that Kelly and them have just looked at that. And but now like opportunities like after this, you see, okay, she's immensely talented, and it's just a balance, I think,
Yeah.
and as long as she's enjoying it and having fun, and a lot of that comes from the girls, like these girls, like they get their team, like this is kind of like
Mm-hmm.
everything to them, like, and I think that's the part that's important, the social part, the development. I mean, Addy doesn't run that much, relative. They do a lot in the gym and the weight room and drills and all that stuff. I think is just good for developing them as athletes long term. And certainly he could push her harder. She could do more volume, and I'm sure he will over time. But like it's very good at developing them smartly,
Yeah.
safely, healthy.
Certainly an incredible opportunity to be coached by one of the best high school coaches in the country. Addy, when your dad is a 3-time Olympian, though, like how often do you come to him and say, hey, what would you think about this? Like, this is what coach is saying, but just do you ever get second opinions from either your dad or your mom, or are you just like, hey, just leave them out of it and let them just be parents?
Yeah, I definitely go to them um a few times. I feel like I don't really talk about like running or training plans like that too much. If like Coach Kelly isn't there, or if we're on like a trip or like a race like Penn Relays where Coach Kelly wasn't there, then I'll definitely ask my dad for like advice and stuff. But he mainly gets me like free spikes. So it's really
It's
helpful.
my number one
Yeah.
job: shoes and spikes.
Uh, hey, coach of the on athletics team, which has been actually crushing it the last couple of years with, the list goes on and on with, but Yard, Nagoose and Joe Klecker and Ollie Hoare. And Alicia and again Helen O'Beary won both at Boston and New York. Like it's an incredible amount of success. And you know, again, like you said, other groups actually run on the track at Niwot too. But um, uh, do the athletes at the On Athletic Club almost view you, Addy, as like a little baby sister or something like that? Like, have you heard from a lot of them the last couple of days about how proud they are of you?
Yeah, they reposted a lot of the pictures of me. They got me flowers and cards.
Oh,
They're really sweet, and yeah, they wish me like good luck at my races, and I think it's just like really cool to have them there.
yeah. Dathan, what does it do for, a 10th grader's IQ in this sport to be able to be, so in such a close proximity, not only with you, but just them, the pros, and how much might have you benefited from that kind of a situation if those people were all just living down the street in Rockford, Michigan?
Well, I think it's more like inspirational, maybe, like gets to see this cool stuff. You get to travel the world, do all these fun
Yeah.
things, but that we have a lot of fun as a team too. That team is very important to us, and so there's common themes there. Like it's hard to do it by yourself, and if you can find the right group, the right environment, and like even making good friends with your competitors. I think the Colorado crushed the NXN in general, and like if Ella Hagen or Isabella Laurie or Bethany, like Air Academy, like they all know each other, they see each other, you get to be friends with these people. And I try, I think that's something that's great about our sport. When you're competing at the level, whatever the level is, you can be very you need to make the effort because you see these people at the same places everywhere. And me as now I'm old and don't I'm not fast like I used to be, but sort of fast, but I'm not that fast. But I see the same people, I see the same coaches, the same agents, the same athletes all over the place, and they're getting the chance to do that too. Whether they're going to St. Vrain Invitational or NXR, down in Phoenix, or the kids that are running Foot Locker, you see those kids, and then a lot of them, they end up being college, competitors. And it's one of the cool things about our sport is to be able to get the relationships, and everybody kind of knows the emotions, and, like you can share the excitement. Like Bethany was genuinely happy and excited for Addy, like because that feeling. And so I think, whether you're on the pro level, you get that, and hopefully like hopefully the athletes who are around our athletes will see that, and whether it's Addy's team or others. And I think that's probably one of the most important things.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to the race just for a second, like when you got back up there to the finish area, obviously Addy has won. What were the emotions for you and your wife and your son? Like she's just done this. It almost seems like as great a season as she was having. Desert Twilight ran 16:44, awesome at the state meet, but to win that race, it's like, oh, I think we've just leveled up. Like this is something. This is a bit of a coming out, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it's an incredible feeling for sure to watch your kid do something like that and to be genuinely like surprised and excited about it. That's the thing you love. And I, for one, I'm like, I watch it and I'm like, man, I can't believe that she's a sophomore, and I see this and I get to, my wife's there, my kid, and then you get to hug her afterwards and she's just happy. But like it's part of seeing, like what you're capable of and pushing yourself. Like that's cool to see too, because sometimes it looks easy, but it never is. Like the best athletes, Yard never looks like he's working hard, but it's hard for them. And same thing with Addy, like it's the hard work, the day in, the day out. And I think it's just the learning too, like you don't need to know right away like what to do. And I know I remember that at NXR a couple weeks ago. I was running around. I flew in that morning, went right to the course, and I'm running on the course, and it's on the backside halfway through, and I see Kelly and I say, "What's the plan today, coach?" And he's like, "Oh, I just told her if she feels it, go for it." And she didn't really feel it that day, didn't feel amazing. Um, but he's pretty good at letting them, like learn, and because they got to do that, right? They got to go through it, and like they don't need to know everything. You kind of follow your gut, you learn what to do, you notice, oh, like Addy said, I see oh, the gap's starting to shrink. Oh, I think I can do it. I got to save something for the last hills. And they learn, and that's part of the process. And so for me to watch it unfold in the most awesome and dramatic way as a parent, and then my get up to the top of the steps and I was hobbling in because my hamstring was, from sprinting around was not good. And Jude is like, I'm going to the finish to see her, and Kaylin was there, her mom, and we were really emotional because it was just so cool to see.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Addison, I think we may have seen something pivot at NXN where it's like, okay, the Southwest has just crushed this thing. Like Utah dominated the boys' race, Colorado dominated the girls' race. Are we about and there's a lot of young athletes coming back, are eligible to come back next year. Do you think there's something about that the altitude states are now beginning to kind of like, hey, we're this is going to be like, this is not a one-time thing. This is could be the shift of like a new era, perhaps um, for those groups. And in addition to having some great coaching in those states and some very motivated kids.
Yeah, I feel like the Southwest region really it was really cool to see like how much we dominated the NXN race. I think part of it was because of NXR, how muddy it was, and considering like we got to practice on the mud and really feel it and like feel the lactic spike and um but altitude is also I think could be part of it, but yeah, I would say just the NXR race really made a difference.
Good prep. Yeah. I was going to ask you about what it was like, your foot strike, like the contact you're making in that squishy course on Saturday. It had to be kind of I would imagine it's not the kind of scenario where you can do a lot of resting. You have to be thinking about where you're going, where the next step going to be. Like, was that was that challenging, or what, did it seem like you were able to get into a rhythm?
Yeah, that was for sure challenging. I feel like I didn't get a break from the lactic spike, like we practiced in our workouts, but really just there. I don't feel like there was much like sure footing, and I feel like we didn't really get a break from that at all. But being able to like push through it because everybody's in the same boat, really helped, and just finding like just like kind of staying in the moment and not really thinking about it too much, I would say really helped.
Yeah. You have a background in gymnastics. Um, how much is that early? If you're doing athletics and you from a young age, and one of those sports that you're doing is gymnastics, where you're learning so much about body control and balance and some of those important kind of things that really can translate to other things later. Like, how much has gymnastics help you become a kind of an elite high school athlete?
I feel like I haven't really thought about my gymnastics years much, but I would say like the flexibility really helped and like just like being part of a team, I would say like the teamwork and doing stuff for your team. Um that would like really help and like yeah, I feel like yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
I think, we used to watch her and she didn't really compete. It was mostly recreational stuff, but she
Okay.
did it a lot, and, but other girls competed. So she would, we just, she didn't really want to go and do those, but like she loved to practice. She loved to, and she got very strong. She's like, just knows how to, knows how to move and stuff like that. And,
Yeah.
you got to continue to build off of it, obviously. And, they do a good job in the gym and stuff now. But I think it's super important. I mean, I grew up playing, like baseball and football, but like then that teamwork would mattered for sure. And I was a good athlete, but like I think those skills are developed for kids in other sports too. And so for her, she learned the pushing herself maybe in swimming, like later on for those couple of years that she did that. And obviously she was a good aerobic athlete. And she was really good at breaststroke, right? Or
Mhm.
yeah, I think, and really good at that. Longer stuff, obviously she was better at, but she had a team and they would be in the pool and they'd have the practices and competitions. And so I think, it was a good diversified
Yeah.
background for her.
Yeah. Um, you certainly study the biomechanics of running and arm carriage and foot strike, all that stuff. Like when you've seen Addy and the way that she runs, are there the hallmarks that are similar to way that you looked when you ran or when Kaylin ran?
I mean,
Do you see the body language
she
that's comparable?
just looks better than we did
Better,
running. She's
yeah,
nice, nice, smooth stride. I don't think she thinks about it too much. I think,
yeah.
and I think that's an important thing. Like everybody moves differently. I think she kind of moves like how I did when I was younger, and then I did a lot of some form change stuff, and I think my son actually like spent more time with me when I was running, and he runs a little more like how I did later. And I think you mirror what you see a little bit, but also everybody's physiology is different, and if someone's legs are different or like they're tight at one part of their body or not, it doesn't mean that it's bad. It doesn't, no one way looks, like some people want the look that looks perfect, but like a lot of people said that in New York City, like Helen's form is like maybe more unorthodox but super powerful, and that works in a very good way for her, and it always has, versus someone like G'day, who is very just smooth, rhythmic, but it doesn't mean that it's better. It just, every person is different in how they move, and unless it lends you to injury in some way, which it's not always what it looks like, there's no reason to even think too much about it. You just run how you feel is the best, and the body tends to know what to do, I think.
Yeah. Mentally, I would imagine that there are some similarities. Again, the competitiveness. Addison, do you recall watching your dad before he retired race at all?
Yeah.
Only when I was bad. When I wasn't good anymore.
I I do remember seeing him run a lot of marathons. One memory I would say is the New York City Marathon. I do remember that one. Yeah,
That wasn't good.
that wasn't the best race, but um we ran some like riverbank 5Ks in Michigan. I
Mm,
remember those, but they weren't too competitive.
She was there when in Zurich when I broke the American record in the 5K,
mm,
but she was two, and sitting on
yeah,
my wife's lap watching Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. She wasn't even watching watching the race, so she doesn't remember any of the really good, times. But
yeah.
uh,
You would have been four, I guess, when he needed to get the standard and the place in Eugene, right? And four is about the edge of like what do you can remember. You were probably there for that, right?
you remember, you told me, I think once, you remembered playing in the old pit at Hayward, and
Yeah, I remember
I
that.
think that was 2013
Okay.
pre-classic. Afterwards, we did a
Okay.
workout, and her and Jude were playing in the steeple pit, and she remembers that, and when she was 5, maybe, but it's
Yeah, yeah.
borderline.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, hey, I can let you guys go, but it's such a treat to hear from you both, and I want to congratulate you again, Addy, on what an amazing race, and wish you both happy holidays and a fun trip to Hawaii.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.